Welcome back for one last time because we're nearly at the end of our exciting little character selection project in Unreal Engine. In this episode, I'd like to add just a couple of embellishments to the project. They really don't make that big a difference, but to me as a perfectionist, these things are very important. So on one hand, I'd like to remove a debug message that still comes up in the top left-hand corner, depending on which character, with the name of the character that's pre-selected in the menu. Then we have the mouse cursor that is still showing no matter if we're using the gamepad or using the mouse and keyboard. So I'm going to put a conditional in there that asks, are we using a gamepad? And if we are, then let's remove that cursor. And much the same way, we still have to deal with that description message that if we're using a gamepad, it'll be a different value than when we're using the mouse and keyboard. Let's see if we can make it happen. Let's deal with the easy stuff first. I think, was it in the Cinti character? Yes, there's this thing called the print string. I can go and remove that. I tend to, if something is on a different event graph, I don't tend to make a comment around it because it's already on its own page. So I think I'm just going to go and close this down without any other descriptions here. This is the menu shenanigans graph here. This is our brand new graph that will bring up or hide or show the menu. And this is, I think, where we can go and ask something just in the front here where it says, where we summon the actual menu. We can ask, hey, what key was pressed? We get that from here. And we can, there's a thing called, I think it's a Boolean, is gamepad key. There we go. That's the one. And that's a conditional that we can use to ask, hey, are we using anything that comes from a gamepad or not? And if we are, we can just go and set that as a variable, local variable to our thing. That'll be helpful in a moment. So it's going to go promote that to a variable and call that once it is hooked in here. We're going to call that not variable 0 or new variable 0. We're calling that is using gamepad. And that'll just follow that value. I'll set that for a reason. I'll tell you in a minute why that is important. Because for now, really where we want to use this value, are we using a gamepad or not, is in fact in this function here, which is show menu. In here, that's that long menu, that long function, we're saying display the mouse cursor. Everything else pretty much works, but this is essentially just that conditional that I'd like to make available. Since this function specifically sets the mouse cursor, we can solve this in one of two ways. One is that since we have a local variable, we can just go drag that up here and say get, and then just go and connect that, and then say if actually no, we need to invert that. If we are using a gamepad, we don't want to show the mouse cursor, so we could just go and add a not node in here, boolean not, N-O-T, not boolean, and then we just go hook that up. So that would work. We can do that, and then we solve everything inside this function here. That'll work. Or we could, if you like to do that, we could just amend the actual function, show start menu or show menu, and give it an input that then has the same parameter. So it kind of depends on how you want to play it. If you had that, if show menu had an input, you could just go and hook that up from here to there and then query that parameter. Both options should work. I might just go and leave it like this, because that's a fairly easy thing to do here. In fact, while we're at it, let's just go see if it actually works the way we expect it. So right now I'm using my keyboard. I'm bringing that up. I can see the mouse cursor. That's the white little arrow. I don't mean the orange circle. That's just going to be there because I'd like to show you what I'm doing. So that works. If I dismiss the menu, bring it back up with my gamepad, we do not see the mouse cursor. That is exciting. So that's already total success here. So that's good. That's great. We're almost there. I can also, while I'm still selecting these things, I can still see that white dotted outline around the button that currently has the keyboard focus. Do you see that? It's slim and it's small, but it's one of those things. Yeah, there's on day and night we can see this better. it's kind of personal preference. You can remove it, and it's something that you have to do in Unreal Engine. In fact, let's do that next. This is done under Edit, Project Settings, and there should be something called User Interface. There it is. It's under the Engine section here. At the very bottom here, that's User Interface. And there's something that's this thing at the top here, Focus. Render focus line. We have that as navigation only. Focus brush will be rendered for widgets that have user focus only if the focus was set by navigation. Or we can have non-pointer always, or we can set this to never. And I think that's what I might do. If I set this to never and just play this whole thing again, then that dotted line should not come up anymore. And it does not. There we go. Totally doesn't. Oh, actually what also doesn't happen is, I'm just noticing that now, we now also can't really navigate to day and night because those buttons are not actually highlighted. Highlight. That's a shame, isn't it? So I guess what's happening is that these buttons, the day and night and quit buttons, are just not part of the array that we're questioning. Do you have keyboard focus or not? So I hope I can just add that there quickly. Let's see if we can make it happen. So that is something that needs to happen in the selection menu. Actually, in this function here that we're making our create mesh map, this function. It's not the actual mesh map that needs these buttons. It literally is the array that we're creating from it that we're using in the button focus thing. So this is the array that we're basically making from the mesh map. And I thought I'll be cheap and not actually put the rest of the buttons into my map. So if I were to do that, even though we're never going to query them with the logic that we've set up, it will then be beneficial for the array that we're creating here with all the buttons. So let's make that happen. Fine. So let's go and add, we're missing 3 buttons. So let's go and add 1, 2, 3 pins here quickly. And it is really simple to do, actually. We're just going to go and put the day level into the value here. Then we're going to use the night level, put that into value 10. And then use the quit button and put that into value 11. Now, I don't know what happens if I go and compile this now. I have a feeling I'm going to get an error message. No, it works fine. Oh, that's interesting. I was under the impression these keys need to be absolutely unique. So right now I don't have keys here. That is interesting. Let's see if it works without it. I've never tried that. I would have thought I'm going to get a compiler error, but it looks like I'm not. So, hey, never mind. We've set the rest of the buttons to the mesh map. Mesh map doesn't really care about it. We're never going to find them out from the mesh map, but the mesh map's now going to give all its values to a new array, and that is the array that we're going to use to query, do you have focus, comma, button? And if so, we're going to go and make a highlight different there. I might actually just go have a quick tweak at the highlight color. This looks kind of frightening to me. So I might just go make that less saturated and less, also maybe like, 0.7 on the opacity here. There, it'll still be a highlight. It just won't burn my retina if you get my drift. Let's see if it works. Yes, there is a highlight. It's not quite as aggressive. Does it go over to day and night? No, it does. Yes, it goes to quit, but it doesn't go to day and night. That's a shame, isn't it? Why not? Have we hooked them up properly? It goes to, you probably can't see this, but I can see this. It goes to quit, skips day and night, and then goes back to the police officer. What is happening here? Interesting. Let's investigate. It could just be that it doesn't have the correct keys. So let's just call this one, maybe it just uses one as a unique value and the other one's not. So let's go call this one day just as a dummy value, and this one is night. And then this one, yeah, that's probably what it is. And this one is called quit. Yeah, I thought there was going to be some issue with that. If you try that, if you're not setting them up in a blueprint like this, if you use a sidebar to make that happen, Unreal Engine really isn't happy about keys that are not unique. Let's see if it happens now. Yes, day, night, quit. We have them all. And I think I made that blue a little bit too pale now. But hey, I'll leave that in your capable artistic hands to find just the right value there. What is currently also not set, and this is the final thing I want to do on our project, if I summon the menu from the keyboard, we say press 1 to 4 to change outfits. If we summon it from the game controller, it says the same thing. I need to figure out a way to make sure that doesn't happen. So we're going to set ourselves a new variable with the description text dependent on the value of are we using a gamepad or not. Because the mouse cursor is working fine, but the text, obviously we haven't implemented that yet. Let's make it happen. So that's something we'll do on the Cinti character. In fact, in this branch here, in which we're showing the menu, let's set this value there in show menu. So that's a function. Let's head over there, show menu. We can just bolt this on here. That's quite nice. Let's put that function in here. So we're going to create a new function and call it from inside the function, just to encapsulate that a little bit more. And we're going to call this new function change description, perhaps. Have I spelled that correctly? Description, there. And change description will have a branch that'll set the text on a new variable dependent on us using a gamepad or not. So if we are using a gamepad, then we're going to set this to whatever the gamepad description needs to be. And if it's false, we're going to set this to whatever it is currently. To set something, we need to also set it up. So let's go and create a new variable down here. And we'll call that one description text. There we go. That should do the trick. I'm going to need to make that one public. So click that little eye icon because our menus it's going to need to pick it up. So with that out of the way, I can go drag that out and say set here, and then also go grab the description text, set this again. If we're not using a gamepad. And since I'm kind of happy with the text that we currently have on the selection menu, I'll just go to my designer here, make sure I pick the description text, and I'll just go and copy this text out of here. A and C, and go back here, and this should be displayed if we're not using a gamepad, so if this is false. There, perfect. Press 1 to 4 to change outfits, press 5 to 7 to change skin tone. So maybe I'll go amend this text, being lazy as I am. I'll go and change that into D-pad to change outfits, action buttons to change skin tone. Kind of says it as it is, doesn't it? That's perfect. Now we need to call this function just before we show the menu, so that just before it gets displayed, we get to set a new value in that variable so that the menu can extract it properly. I'll go and drag this out here and say change description. Could set this to something, you could call this something more descriptive, but you get the drift. So this function is called just before we show the menu, and that sets the value. We're currently not giving it to the menu, so let's do that next. This could be our final ever step. With the description text selected, this is one of my favorite functions in Unreal Engine, that if we were to see it, I mean, just imagine it's here now somewhere. If we scroll all the way to the bottom, no, I'm lying, actually, it's not on the bottom, it's here, where we're defining that text under content. This is where I've typed this message in manually. But there's also this little button here which says bind. So we can bind this to any variable that is accessible from literally anywhere. So if it's available, it'll be bindable to that. And it will then take its text out of whatever that variable value is. I can either go create a binding here that will open a new function, and I can mess with code. I don't really want to do that. I'm just going to use the character here and hover over on that, and that now gets me anything I can access on that character, which is great. So one of them is going to be the description text. So I can bind this text directly to the variable on another object that I've already grabbed a reference to. And that's really all I need to do here. The moment I set a different value on my character in this variable, this should work. Let's test it out. Bring up the menu with my keyboard. It says press 1 to 4. Also goes into day and night. This is great. I'm going to dismiss this. Bring the same menu up with my gamepad and D-pad to change outfits. That is very cool. Great. Do this again with my keyboard, and yes, it does work. It does indeed work. Do this again with my gamepad. Change text. Awesome. This is great. There's one final thing I'm thinking we should perhaps implement, and it's totally personal preference. I'm thinking if I'm a gamepad user, I probably want to change a character and select it, and at that point I'd like for the menu to be dismissed already. I don't really want it to hang around and then I have to dismiss it manually. I think it'll be, I don't know, it's personal preference, but I think I'd like for that to happen, and also it's a good way to show how I would make that happen perhaps. Character randomizer here, very nice. We'll build that in the next project. This is something we can do on the menu. If you remember, and this is kind of going back to the beginning of this whole series, if I go and close this down, close the button focus down, and remind myself of how I'm actually changing the character. There's this whole, in the event graph, we've got these things that say change mesh. So on button clicked, grab a new character, and we're going to set that on the change mesh function. This is our function. We've made that. We've written that here inside the selection menu. And since it is a function, if I were to have to amend something now on every single of these button clicks, and there's 9 buttons, they're going to be really, really cumbersome. But luckily, this is a function, so we can just go and open it up by double clicking into change mesh. And there it is. That is changing the skeletal mesh. And I would like to know now, are we using a gamepad? And if so, go and hide the menu. If not, ignore it. Do everything the way we did it up until now. So to do that, we can go, we already have a reference to our character. So we can go and branch off here and use the is using gamepad variable on our character as a condition here. So we'll drag this out here and say get is using gamepad to here. Put a little reroute note into here, make it all look super pretty. And at that point, we need to grab another reference to our character. That might look a little bit mad, so we just go and grab another one from our big array here. That might just be easier. If we are, then we'd like to call a function on the character, and that function is hide menu. But only then. If not, then we don't do anything. And that is how we dismiss the menu. So this character is the same as this. You can just go grab another wire out of that if you want. But that should do the trick. While we're changing the mesh, let's see, are we using a gamepad? If we are, go ahead and hide the menu. If we're not, leave the menu as it is. Let's see if it works. That's always a tricky part, isn't it? Let's see if it works. And if it doesn't, oh my God, go start panicking. Keyboard, change character, menu remains. Dismiss menu, grab gamepad. Bring menu up, change character to businesswoman. Menu gets dismissed. Oh my goodness, I can keep running around. This is super awesome. Let's try this again. Yes, menu gets dismissed automagically. That is seriously cool. Isn't it? I think this is just so super cool. Look at that. Auto menu dismissal. Gamepad users, they don't like pressing a lot of buttons. They just want things to work intuitively. I know, because I am one of those guys. For me, gamepad navigation and gamepad functionality is super important. I know many people, they don't really care about it, but hey, That's one of those things. I'm more comfortable playing with a gamepad than with a mouse and keyboard. But it's totally personal preference. The whole point of making this work differently with the gamepad than with the mouse and keyboard is that by the way, keyboard navigation also works really well. I can just use Enter to select my character. I can use Tab to go forward, Shift Tab to go backwards, or use my cursor keys. So the whole point of putting all these things in there is that not everyone is comfortable with everything. You know, we're all completely individual suckers, and what I love, you hate, and vice versa. And by giving people options when you design menus like that, you make everyone happier. And I think this is what it's all about, isn't it? And that was it for the whole series. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was entertaining. I hope you got a lot out of it. I hope you're having fun with Unreal Engine, because for me, that's what Unreal Engine really is all about. I love the Cinti packs, and when I got started with Unreal Engine, it was very tricky for me to get it to a point where I'm thinking, hey, can I actually do something meaningful with that? And with this kind of primer, I hope you can go to the next level and make something meaningful in the game. Make the characters collect something. Make them open doors depending on the outfit they're wearing, you know, that sort of thing. Add a bit of background noise or background movement with other characters, you know, maybe spawn random characters in that go from A to B, make them randomize their mesh or whatnot. You know, there's tons and tons of possibilities. I hope this can get you started. If you enjoyed this series, then please consider becoming one of my Patreon or Ko-fi supporters. Not only does that give you a name in the credits, it also gives you early access to new material that I'm making a week or so in advance of the general YouTube release, sometimes months in advance. It also gives you access to some goodies, and most importantly, it gives you access to my private Discord server. It's not a public server, but it's a great place to hang out and ask questions. It's support for supporters only, and it's a lovely, wonderful group of people. We're helping each other, and you know, we're just nerds just like you. So if you are so inclined, drop me $1 or $2 in my tip jar, either on Patreon or on Ko-fi. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.